My name is Laura Palazón, and I'm going to talk about my Clil session. The title is Wilson's 14 Points Shaping Peace After the Great War. The description of the learners' grade level is 4th of ESO, secondary education, and the number of students for this class is 16. The subject is history of the 20th century. The main criteria to detect the tier level of the students for English language is the ability to understand primary sources written in English, ability to form sentences and use academic vocabulary, fluency in oral expression, and ability to understand videos in English. About subject understanding, it's the ability to analyze historical primary and secondary sources, ability to understand key historical concepts and apply them in tasks, ability to elaborate timelines and place historical facts in time and space. Other subject-specific criteria are the ability to interpret graphs, images, and maps and relate them to its historical context, ability to elaborate concept maps. This is the rubric for Tier 1, high support, Tier 2, moderate support, and Tier 3, high autonomy of the students. In English language, Tier 1 recognizes only basic words, Tier 2 understands and uses simple sentences, needs help with technical vocabulary and longer sentences, and Tier 3 uses academic vocabulary and explains events in full sentences. For subject understanding, Tier 1 identifies basic facts with visual support, but often confuses key concepts. Tier 2 explains main causes and events with some guidance, and Tier 3 clearly explains causes, events, and consequences, can summarize and compare historical interpretations independently. And other criterion are for Tier 1 completes tasks only with step-by-step guidance, Tier 2 completes tasks with partial guidance, and Tier 3 completes tasks independently, producing coherent text or presentations. About the unit and lesson selected, the topic for the unit is First World War. The timing, the number of sessions is 8, and the session number for this specific Clil lesson is number 6. The description or aim of the lesson is this lesson aims to explore the main consequences of the First World War by analyzing Wilson's 14 points. Students will understand his proposal for peace, compare them with actual post-war settlements, and develop historical analysis and academic English skills through a primary source. Unit content is causes of the First World War, development of the conflict and characteristic of the war, and consequences of the war and the configuration of a new international order. This is the part of the unit that applies to my session. Peace treaties, territorial, demographic, economic, and social changes, and emergence of the League of Nations. The unit language content is language for describing historical events and processes, language for comparing and contrasting, and language for explaining cause-effect relationships. Cognition developed in the unit, learning goals to know and explain the main causes and triggers of the First World War, to analyze and interpret historical sources to understand the nature of the development of the First World War, and to evaluate the consequences of the conflict and establish connections with later historical processes. Cognition developed in the unit, learning outcomes from lower thinking skills to higher thinking skills. Pupils identify and categorize the causes of First World War. For learning goal 2, pupils interpret maps, photographs, and propaganda posters from the First World War, higher thinking skills. And for learning goal 3, pupils assess the impact of the Treaty of Versailles by arguing whether its terms contributed to future conflicts using evidence from historical documents. The content and cognition developed in this specific session, learning goal 1 is to know and explain the consequences of the First World War. The second learning goal is to analyze and interpret historical sources to understand the nature and development of the First World War. And the learning goal 3 is to evaluate the consequences of the conflict and establish connections with later historical processes. About communications, a language of learning, we have key subject-specific vocabulary like self-determination, League of Nations, territorial adjustment, and essential sentence structures for historical explanation like cause-effect structures, comparisons and contrasts, explaining aims or intentions, connecting past and future, and evaluating impact or effectiveness. About in communication, language for learning, we have in the first place asking for clarification or support, working in pairs or groups. In the third place, giving opinions and reasoning, and for participating in class discussions. This is the communication skills they have to develop. About culture, the outline is students compare Wilson's ideas with short cultural perspectives from France, the UK, and Germany through one of the activities focused on language activity that we will see later on. Lesson activities, we have an activating activity, predicting piece, image-based warm-up. Students analyze 3 images and predict the main issues Europe faced after the First World War. Here we have like the result of this activity in the blackboard with political, economic, and social consequences and the 3 images. Tier support for activity 1, predicting piece, like the vocabulary with icons for lower level learners. Tier 2, mid-level learners vocabulary list without icons, and students produce 1 prediction per image. And Tier 3, higher level learners, no frames given. The following activity is guiding and understanding activity. Students read a simplified excerpt of Wilson's 14 points and identify its main ideas through a guided worksheet. The materials are in the Google Drive folder, so you can read that there. It's the Wilson's 14 points and the worksheet with different questions with different levels of difficulty. Also, like key terms and glossary for level 1 tier that need more like support, and a glossary. Focus on language activity. We have like students compare Wilson's ideas with short cultural perspectives from France, the UK, and Germany. Focus on speaking activity. Students discuss in small groups whether Wilson proposals could have created a lasting piece. Focus on writing activity, piece in 1 sentence, summary writing. And the final activity, assessment, review, and feedback activity with an exit ticket 3 to 1 Wilson. In the materials in Google Drive, you can find the exit ticket with the different questions and the sentence starters for tier 1, that is like attention to diversity. Scaffolding, we have a substitution table for describing and explaining consequences of First World War that you can also like see in Google Drive, and a grep test for explaining the consequences of the First World War using Wilson's 14 points. The grep test can be attached evidence with a word bank. The assessment is formative and systematic observation, guided worksheet, per check, and monitoring group talk in the mini debate, plus the exit ticket. And the summative assessment in a task is piece in 1 sentence plus comparison chart. It's a 20-25 word summary sentence explaining Wilson's main aim. The rubric, it's you can see the rubric here with the different content accuracy, use of English, and clarity and organization. Why? Because these tools ensure that the students not only understand the consequences of First World War, but can also express that understanding in English, which is essential in a bilingual 4th ISO setting. All the material in detail, it's in the Google Drive folder, so you can see it with more detail. Thank you very much for listening. Goodbye.